I call to order the Plan Commission meeting of September 26th. We can proceed with roll call, please.
Mr. Holman?
Here.
Ms. Lazaris?
Here.
Mr. Foster?
Here.
Mr. Grady?
Here.
Ms. Curler?
Here.
And Dr. Mason and Mr. Coots previously informed staff that they'd be unavailable for this evening's meeting.
All right, thank you. First, I'd like to thank those of you who were able to go on the Rock Lake Improvement Association boat tour of September 6th, and also commend the Rock Lake Improvement Association for this opportunity for Plan Commissioners and staff, and also for further to that, for supplying the written comments as to the status of Rock Lake. It's very important that we keep track of this issue, as this is going to come up naturally and often as we consider our future. And with that, we'll go to item number 3, correction and/or acceptance of the meeting minutes of August 22nd, 2023.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as printed. Mr. Holman.
Mr. Grady was second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Holman and seconded by Mr. Grady to approve the minutes of August 22nd. Any comments? All right, in that case, we'll proceed with roll call vote.
Ms. Lazaris?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Abstain.
Mr. Grady?
Aye.
Ms. Curler?
Aye.
Mr. Holman?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
All right. Next, we have item number 4, questions and public comment. The public may address the commission at this time regarding items on the agenda unless the item is the subject of a public hearing. If your comments pertain to a public hearing, please hold your comments until the hearing. We do have 3 public hearings this evening. Item number 5, conditional use request by Robert Mark Lindman for grading, filling, and excavating within 300 feet of the ordinary high water mark at 514 West Lake Street for a boathouse and boardwalk and certain landscaping improvements. Item number 7, conditional use request by John Jewell and owner Laura Siegel for amending warehouse development in the I-1 General Industrial District at 730 Jefferson Street. Item number 9, conditional use request by BNB Property Group LLC by Darrel Kitsembel for a dine-in restaurant in the PI Planned Industrial District at 360 Enterprise Drive. Public comment may also be made at this time on items that are not on the agenda if you have registered with the city clerk before the meeting. The state's open meeting law discourages action by the commission on items not listed on the agenda. If you wish to comment at this time, please keep comments limited to 3 minutes. State name and address when starting comments and fill out the sign-in sheet at the podium. For people online, please follow the Zoom link or the phone number listed on the Plan Commission agenda. Are there any public comments at this time? All right. And then if you would please state your name and address for the record. And then also write it into the record, both.
Yep.
Yeah, please.
Hi, my name is Melissa Fearman. I live at 225 Circle Drive in Lake Mills. I just want to address the Plan Commission today because there's on your agenda information about the Veterans Mural coming up and finding a new home for it. To me, that Veterans Mural means a lot. My grandpa's on there, so are many other deserving individuals. And it's been down for quite a while. So I hope that when you get that presentation that you take it and that you approve it and allow the veterans to be displayed again. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else who would like to speak at this time? Would anyone else like to speak under item number 4? Are there any other comments under this item? All right. We'll go on to item number 5, public hearing, conditional use request from property owner LFLP by Robert Mark Lindman for grading, filling, and excavation within 300 feet of the ordinary high water mark of Rock Lake to demolish an existing structure and replace it with a boathouse and boardwalk at 514 West Lake Street. Before we go on to the public comment on this item, I'd like to first call on, may I say, new building inspector and zoning administrator, Troy Evenson. If you would give us a summary of this request, please.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. The petitioner here is actually looking to replace an existing structure that's there. Right now, it consists of a patio and a retaining wall system that holds up, obviously, grade for this patio, and then a set of stairs down to a pier. The new structure that they're proposing pretty much fits in the exact same footprint. They will be removing the existing structure, putting in a boathouse, a small boardwalk that leads out to the pier. We do, it does fit into all the requirements as far as the setbacks from the side yard, from the overall high water mark, the size of the boathouse, how high it is, everything meets our requirements. The boathouse is an allowed use in this district, the Lake Overlay District, but we're asking for a conditional use because of the grading, because it's more than a 20% grade where this is being installed. There is a few, I don't know if you guys probably saw the pictures, there is a little bit of landscaping around the existing set of stairs that they're going to do their best to maintain. There's a couple of trees there that are going to stay there. They will not be removed. And there was a little bit of concern about the choice of plants going back in once this project's completed. And I've talked with the owner. We're going to work together and use approved native plants instead of the ones that were listed on the original landscape plan. So that being said, the staff approves this. It seems to be a low impact on the surrounding area, very low impact because there's already a structure there. It's kind of a pick up and replace with a new structure and give them what they need in that small little 30-foot vision corridor.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Evenson. We are in public hearing. Does anyone wish to make a comment regarding this proposed conditional use?
My name is Bill Ritchie. I'm the across the street neighbor of Mark and Lisa, and my only concern and only reason for appearing here was I was concerned about the view over their property from my house and my next two neighbors' house. I've talked to them also who have a view of the lake. I'm assured that that's not a problem, and I'd like to say something in favor of approving that anything Mark and does is done well. With consideration to the appearance, topography, and environment. The beautiful awning that he put on, made of copper and natural copper, is gorgeous, as is the gas lighting, and I'm sure the next project he does will also be appealing. So my only concern was my view over his property, and I'm assured that that will not be impeded above the natural landscape. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comments. Would anyone else like to speak?
Good evening. Thank you for taking the time to hear this. My name is Mark Lindman. I'm pretty much a lifelong resident of Lake Mills. My wife and I have been summer residents since 1968. This is where we're going to be kind of ending up full-time in a few years. I've talked to Mr. Ritchie at length here just casually, and we're basically just replacing an existing structure. The one that's there is falling down. It wasn't constructed correctly initially. I wish it would have been. So we're basically replacing it with actually a slightly smaller footprint. There'll be no elevation change in the existing. I've discussed with Troy as far as we're very happy to work with the Rock Lake Improvement Association as far as plantings. So we want to make our little part of the city just better. So that's what we're hoping to be able to do with this. So thank you for your time.
All right, fine. Thank you, Mr. Lindman. We are still in public hearing. Is there anyone else who would like to speak concerning this proposal? Is there anyone else who wants to speak on this item? Are there any further comments to come forward at this time? All right, hearing none, and we'll go on to item number 6, discussion, recommendation on conditional use permit request from property owner LFLP by Robert Mark Lindman for grading, filling, and excavating within 300 feet of the ordinary high water mark of Rock Lake for the purpose of demolishing an existing structure and replacing it with a boathouse and boardwalk at 514 West Lake Street. Plan Commissioners, you do have a motion 2391 in front of us, and it's a recommendation to City Council for conditional use requests, grading, filling, and excavating on a slope greater than 20% within 300 feet of the ordinary high water mark of Rock Lake for the purpose of a boathouse and boardwalk within the Vision Access Corridor. Parcel 246071314120003. Motion 2391 sets forth the city's zoning authority under Wisconsin state statutes, the city shoreline and vision access corridor standards contained in section 66034. The request by the Lindmans for filling, grading, and excavating on a slope greater than 20% within 300 feet of the shoreline. The review by city staff, tonight's public hearing and plan commission review. This motion does recommend to the city council that they grant the requested conditional use permit with the following conditions. First, terms, conditions, and recommendations provided in the staff memo. And 2, to allow inspection of the premises at the request of the city. Are there any questions or comments concerning this request? Any questions to staff? Ms. Curler?
I guess I'll just make a couple of comments. One is just to clarify for the record, the Plan Commissioners did receive some correspondence from Susan Trier, who's a waterfront property owner and representative of Rock Lake Improvement Association, asking about the vegetation. So I appreciate, Mr. Lindman, you're being willing to modify your vegetation plan to address some of the concerns that she raised, and particularly with we don't want additional invasive species along our shoreline. So thank you very much for addressing that. And I guess my only other question was for Troy. I know we have a vision and access corridor in our ordinance. Is there anything that requires vegetation to be added outside of that vision access corridor if it's not a part of a project
Yeah,
plan?
if it's not disturbed or not part of the project. It's not a requirement. We don't have an infill sort of ordinance yet.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right.
Yeah, all the concerns that have been brought to me, I think, have been cleared up and resolved. One thing I am curious about following the tour of the lake is just runoff. It seems like there's going to probably have to be some big equipment, things like that. And I was just wondering if that's a concern or if it's already been resolved.
Obviously, it's a huge concern, and they'll be required to follow erosion control standards for projects. Yes, there'll be probably a mini excavator in there removing the existing retaining wall and stairs, and a lot of hand labor too. But along the lake shore, we will definitely be addressing any erosion control, so that if there's rainfalls during the project or until all the vegetation has taken place, it'll be contained in an appropriate erosion control system for that project.
Are there any further comments or questions? Would anyone like to make a motion concerning motion 2391?
I'll move approval of Plan Commission Motion 23-9-1 regarding the conditional use permit for Mark Lindman.
I will second it.
All right, it's been moved by Ms. Curler and seconded by Mr. Foster to pass motion 2391. Are there any further comments? In that case, then we can proceed with a roll call vote.
Mr. Foster,
Aye.
Mr. Grady,
Aye.
Ms. Curler,
Aye.
Mr. Holman,
Aye.
Mrs. Zaris.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, thank you. The next item is item number 7, public hearing, conditional use request to allow a mini warehouse development in General Industrial District I-1 at 730 Jefferson Street. And before we open to public comment on this item, then I'll call on Mr. Evenson to give a summary of this request.
All right. This one is a conditional use, like you said, from mini warehouses going in our general industrial district. It's a requirement for our ordinance for any warehousing to go through a conditional use process for that zoning district. They are proposing to add 5 buildings, and I apologize, I wanted to have a up-to-date site plan for you guys to take a look at. But the concept that they're proposing is on that corner property, there's going to be 2 buildings running parallel with Jefferson Street, the north end of that property, and then 3 new buildings below the existing one, south of the existing one, running perpendicular to CP Avenue. We've addressed a couple of things with the petitioner as far as access. The fire chief wanted to have an extra access on CP Avenue about halfway down for getting trucks and gear in and out if he does have to fight a fire there. And then one more access on Jefferson Street, almost all the way to the west side of the west building. We're working on some landscaping stuff. It's not quite compliant yet, so you'll see in my notes that we're looking for some compliant landscaping plans yet, and we're really close with the design of the building as far as getting the right materials. As you can understand, it's kind of a challenge to get somebody to spend a lot of money on nice-looking materials for warehousing, but we have some minimum standards that our ordinance requires us to push onto them. So, not a whole lot else. There's, it's zoned for it. It's a goofy looking lot for somebody else to come in there and utilize it. This might be one of the better fits for it. As you can see around there, we've got the Drumlin Trail on the west side of it, but it's pretty much industrial all the way around it. I didn't know. I thought maybe he was going to be here today to kind of describe or fill in some of the blanks that I don't have. But I think there's enough information here for it to move to the next step, and we can clear up some of the little things in the next step. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
How you doing? I'm John Jewell with 424 Investments in Jewell Homes. Happy to answer any questions you got.
All right. Plan commissioners, the plan commissioners may have questions, but we'll thank you, and we'll ask you under discussion recommendation.
Okay, very good.
All right, thank you. Are there any comments concerning this proposed Are there any comments concerning this proposed development?
How you doing? I'm Kurt Siegel. Laura and I are the owners of Jefferson Street. I want to make a reminder to you people that this place was zoned for warehouses, and the people that are looking to buy this place have done their time and their duty for this. And I need to remind the city that they're the same people that have put in apartments, condos, all this stuff, and Lake Mills is in a shortage of places to store for warehouse storage. So that's just all I'm saying. We are in a shortage of storage right now, and I feel that this is the best need right now for this property. So, all right.
All right, thank you. Thank you for your comments. All right, we are still in public hearing. Are there further comments regarding this proposed development? Would anyone else like to speak regarding this proposed development? Are there any further comments regarding this proposed development? All right, hearing none, we go on to item number 8, discussion recommendation on conditional use permit request to allow a mini warehouse development in General Industrial District I-1 at 730 Jefferson Street. Plan Commissioners, we have before us Plan Commission Motion 2392, recommendation to Plan Commission for conditional use request mini storage development, 730 Jefferson Street, parcel 24607132311-016. Motion 2392 sets forth the city's zoning authority under Wisconsin state statutes. It sets out that the city code has certain requirements for conditional uses in the city. The request for mini storage development at hand, review by city staff, the Plan Commission review. This motion does recommend approval to the City Council of the proposed conditional use subject to staff's recommendations to first comply with terms, conditions, and recommendations in the memo, and second, to allow inspection of the premises at the request of the city. In Mr. Evenson's memo, his recommendations are maintenance agreement. First, a maintenance agreement to be maintained and documented by the property owner. Second, provide a landscaping plan compliant with city code. Third, provide elevation plans of all buildings to show approved exteriors. Fourth, improve existing building and parking area to meet City of Lake Mills code. And fifth, complete building site per City of Lake Mills building and municipal code. As we saw before that, we have the petitioners here if you have questions of him. Oh, Ms. Carroll.
I do have a question for Mr. Jewell. I note in the memo that we have from the city staff that you're the contracted buyer for the property, is that correct?
Correct.
Do you have a closing date? Is there a time-sensitive nature to this request that we should be aware of?
Yeah, I should probably know that by heart. You guys might know it. October something. I apologize. But yeah, it's coming up. We've had it under contract probably 4 months. Started the discussions with Troy.
Yeah.
And it's kind of morphed from a mini warehouse that was, kind of like what's existing there, to more of an industrial warehouse with 14-foot doors. It's really going to match what's around the area better. I think we kind of discussed it fits the overall area better, as opposed to just mini warehouses, little, buildings like that. So I think that's been kind of the time frame. It's been not dragging out. It just takes time for soil tests and surveys and all that stuff to get completed.
Thank you.
All right. Plan Commissioner, staff, does anyone else have questions of Mr. Jewell? All right. Are there any further comments or questions concerning this proposed development?
I have a question for staff.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Evenson, I think it's mentioned somewhere in your memo, I'm trying to remember where I saw this, that there was an issue of non-compliance on the lot currently that you were working to address. What is that
Sure,
issue?
there's an existing building on that parcel, right on the very corner, that wouldn't meet today's standards of building exterior quality and appearance. And Mr. Jewell has agreed that he's gonna give that a facelift to make it match the other new buildings that he's putting in and bring it into compliance.
Okay, so it's just the exterior materials.
There's a
It's
little
not the-
parking area too that has to get addressed also, but yeah, it's really just one building right at the corner there that's gonna stay, and he's gonna, like I said, redo the exterior to bring it into compliance.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Plan Commissioner, staff, are there further comments or questions?
I guess I do just have one more comment for my fellow commissioners. In general, I would prefer not to approve projects if there's still a lot of elements of the plans that aren't completed. And that's why I wanted to try to understand Mr. Jewell's, situation with his contract and the time sensitivity. And I know that that's been a discussion item at the city council level as well. And so assuming this goes to the council, if it's approved tonight, it goes to the council next week. I'm not sure if all the plans will be ready to go, but I'm wondering, Troy or Drake, if you can comment on that.
It won't appear, if it's approved tonight, it won't appear on the council agenda until all outstanding items are received and reviewed and declared to be ready.
Okay, so if the commission approves it tonight, then we would want to incorporate the conditions that are recommended to make sure that there's follow through on that then? Okay. Thank you.
All right. Plan Commissioners and staff, are there further comments or questions? All right.
I will make a motion to approve motion, make sure I read it right here, 23-9.
Mr. Foster, I thought you were just asking if we had any questions for him. I just wanted to make a comment before the motion.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I've been waiting a long time for this moment. This is I think a milestone in the city of Lake Mills. We finally have an in-house zoning administrator with the credentials of Troy to look at things like this project and analyze them from a city perspective, who knows the code and everything that it means. And this is an excellent example of the city moving forward. So I'm really super pleased that the city has structured itself to this point.
Yeah, I very appreciate that, Mr. Holman, and I feel the same. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I will make the motion to approve motion 23-9-2 as written. And I will just say I'm only one vote up here, but I'm okay when there's things that aren't quite finished, because we should have faith in the staff to get those completed before or even after the fact, because that's part of their job. So I don't worry about things that aren't quite completed right away, because I know we have the staff that's going to make sure that it's done right, whether or not it's done before we approve it or push it forward to somebody else. So that's my motion.
All right.
Second the motion.
All right, it's been moved by Mr. Foster and seconded by Mr. Grady to pass motion 2392. Are there any comments or Any further comments regarding this item? All right, in that case, then we can proceed with a roll call vote.
Mr. Grady?
Aye.
Ms. Curler?
Aye.
Mr. Holman?
Aye. Aye.
Ms.
Aye.
Azaris?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, thank you. Next item is item number 9, public hearing, conditional use request from owner BNB Property Group LLC by Darrel Kitsembel for the purpose of establishing a dine-in or sit-down restaurant at 360 Enterprise Drive, parcel number 246071418320003. And before we have public comment, and we'd like to call on Mr. Evenson to give a summary of this case.
All right. This one should look kind of familiar. We just did one a couple of months ago on the south end of town. What this is there's a bakery in one of the units on Enterprise Drive, and they had been selling pastries in the front. There's a small little retail area in the front, and that's allowed by our ordinance. You can sell a small percentage of retail that's oriented to the business that's in that industrial park. The reason we brought this one for a conditional use was they're going to expand a little bit. They're going to do coffees, again with pastries, and then they do some sort of I'll call it a pastry, I don't know, bakery, pot pie type stuff that they're going to start offering as well. Against my our attorney's advice, I did leave the word cafe in here. Our ordinance doesn't. You can't get a conditional use for a cafe. It only has a conditional use for a restaurant, sit down or dine in. So that's why I have to use that verbiage. But this really is going to be used as a cafe. And if you see the pictures, there's only seating for, I think, 4 tables in there. They're limited time that they're going to be in there selling the available products. So I'm kind of presenting it as a cafe, but at the end of the day, we're going to be getting a conditional use for the restaurant, dine-in, or sit-down is what they're applying for. She left a pretty good comment in there about what their process is. The only thing that we really got to work on, and I've talked with her about it, is the parking lot somewhere along the line got expanded to just gravel. We don't allow that, so that's going to get hard surfaced or removed. She said that they're going to continue hard surfacing that existing gravel to add a little bit more parking spaces. And then there's a couple of storage containers back there that we're going to have to either get a proper permit for or get those removed. And again, that was did not sound like it was going to be an issue. So this should be a great fit down there. I think it'll benefit both people in the industrial park and on the residential end over on that side of town. So staff approves.
All right, thank you, Mr. Evenson. We are in public hearing. Does anyone wish to comment on this proposal for the restaurant, dine-in restaurant at 360 Enterprise Drive? Is there anyone who wishes to comment on this proposed? Would anyone like to comment on the proposed cafe? All right, hearing none, then we go on to item number 10, discussion recommendation on conditional use request from owner BNB Property Group LLC by Darrel Kitsembel for the purpose of establishing a restaurant, dine-in, or sit-down at 360 Enterprise Drive, parcel number 246071418320003. Plan Commissioners, we do have the motion before us of 2393, recommendation to City Council for a conditional use permit, restaurant, dine-in, or sit-down, 360 Enterprise Drive, parcel number 246071418320033. Is it 033 or is it 003? Well, you can fix it.
003.
Ah, okay.
183200.
Very good, 003. Okay. Kindly note that on the motion. All right. This motion does set forth the city's zoning authority under Wisconsin state statutes, the code requirements contained in the city code for conditional uses in the city, the specific request for the dine-in restaurant at 360 Enterprise Drive, staff review, this public hearing and Plan Commission review. This motion does recommend to the City Council approval of the requested conditional use subject to the following. First, terms, conditions, and recommendations provided in the staff memo. Second, to comply with applicable licensing and service standards and rules and regulations regarding the use proposed. Third, to allow inspection of the premises at the request of the city. And the part of the terms, conditions, and so forth, that first, staff approval of a pavement marking plan to delineate public and employee parking on the site. Second, to replace the gravel area east of the parking lot and building with a pervious surface or hard surface by an approved material within 12 months. 3, to approve or get proper permits of the storage containers behind the building within 6 months. Are there any comments or questions, commissioners or staff, on this motion 2393? Ms. Curler.
I have some additional questions about the parking. Mr. Evans and I drove by there today, and I saw all the things that you highlighted in your memo as far as the items that need to be addressed. And one of the things I was wondering about, two things, I guess. One is that this is a facility that bakes goods and ships them out. So I'm assuming there'll be kind of truck traffic, supplies going in and out, as well as now these restaurant customers. Do you feel there's sufficient space to deal with kind of both of those uses?
Yeah, definitely for right now. We'll go through that with them, and we're going to get a site plan where they'll mark. They got to have a handicap parking and then customer parking. They got to have employee parking that'll all meet our minimum standards that we have in our ordinance. But especially once they finish blacktopping the rest of the area that behind the building, that's gravel now. She does plan to expand a little bit. She has another business in another city that they might bring some employees back and forth. So yeah, we're definitely going to keep an eye on the parking. But right now, when I measured it out, we should have plenty of parking. And really the vehicles that are coming in are kind of a smaller box truck that she's using, or that trailer that's out there that they're using to transport pastries in and out. So it's not really a semi-type vehicles backing into there.
Okay, thanks. That's helpful. And also, my assumption, maybe you could just confirm, is that there's no parking allowed on Enterprise Drive. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, are there further comments or questions on this motion? Would anyone like to make a motion on motion 2393?
I'll move to approve the motion as written.
I'll second it.
It's moved by Mr. Grady and seconded by Mr. Foster to pass motion 2393. Is there further discussion? All right. In that case, we'll proceed with roll call vote.
Ms. Curler,
Aye.
Mr. Holman,
Aye.
Ms. Lazaris,
Aye.
Mr. Foster,
Aye.
Mr. Grady.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right. Thank you. The next item is item number 11, discussion recommendation on designation of public art, Lake Mills Veterans Mural. And for this discussion item, Mr. Evenson.
Sure.
You could give a summary of this request. Oh, thank you.
Unless you guys want to. Okay, so this one, kind of short and sweet for me. I was contacted by Robin with the president of Lake Mills Aslan Historical Society about reinstalling a veteran mural. And what they're going to do is divide it up into 3 separate murals and put them on 3 separate buildings in the downtown district. And the locations are on here. I don't know if anybody took the time to go down and see, but I went down there the other day and looked. It'll be kind of a neat spot where you can stand and see all 3 from that location, it appears. The reason we're coming in front of you guys with this is our ordinance doesn't classify these as signage because they're not identifying a product. And it does clearly say there in the signage definition that any public work of art could be approved by the Plan Commission. So we feel that this definitely falls under the public work of art, and it's on a private buildings. It sounds like they're going to take responsibility of if and when these things need attention or need to be removed, if they're at the end of their useful life, that they will be removing them. So the city really is just going to be approving them to be installed and really be hands-off after that.
All right, thank you. And Plan Commissioners, in this matter, we have before us motion 2394, designation of public art. Lake Mills Veterans Mural, 204 West Lake Street, Lake Mills, Wisconsin. 129 South Main Street, Lake Mills, Wisconsin. 118 West Lake Street, Lake Mills, Wisconsin. Motion 2394 indicates the Planning Commission's authority to designate public art, sets forth the request by Lake Mills Aslan Historical Society and owners of the buildings for the Veterans Mural, and provides for designation of the Lake Mills Veterans Mural on the exterior walls of 118 West Lake Street, 129 South Main Street, and 204 West Lake Street, Lake Mills, Wisconsin, as public art. And we had in our materials the Jensen letter of intent by Sheldon and Jennifer King, the Legion letter of intent signed by Larry Sauer, the Overson's agreement signed by Denny and Nancy Overson. And we also had the Lake Mills Veterans Mural Statement. Are there any questions, comments regarding this motion? Ms. Curley.
I would just like to make a comment. I'm so pleased to see this project come together, and I can see that it's obviously a lot of hard work and partnership between the Historical Society, the artist, Mr. Kiefer, who's here tonight, as well as the businesses and the Legion. So I'm just very grateful to all of those entities for working together to find a new home. 3 homes, but it sounds like you might be able to see the whole thing from one spot if you stand in the right place in town. So I'm very grateful to these groups for working together to find a place for this beautiful art to continue to be displayed in our community. So thank you all.
All right. Are there any further comments or questions about this motion? In that case, would someone like to make a motion?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Sure. Mr. Holman would make a motion to accept the motion as printed.
A second.
Okay. It's been moved by Mr. Holman and seconded by Mr. Grady to pass motion 2394. Is there any further discussion? In that case, we'll proceed with a roll call vote.
Mr. Holman?
Aye.
Ms. Lazaris?
Aye.
Mr. Foster? It appears he stepped out.
Yep.
Mr. Grady?
He's abstaining from this, right? 951 is first. Aye for me.
Ms. Curler?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes 4-0.
All right, thank you. Our next item is item number 12, discussion recommendation on Cedar Corner condominium plat approval, 951 and 953 Gladstone Way. And Mr. Evenson, we'll call on you to present this request.
All right. Well, if you guys cheat and look at the next two, they're going to be very, very similar. We have an owner that owns two duplexes on Gladstone here and is wanting to convert to a condos for selling them off. What we normally look for, obviously, is that we're not creating anything non-conforming. There is separate utilities because they're being utilized and were built as condos already. They have provided us with all the information, documents were properly submitted, and definitely would approve, staff recommend approval for this project, or for this condo.
All right, thank you, Mr. Evenson. Well, for item number 12, we are in discussion, yes. We do have before us motion 2395, condominium plat approval, Cedar Corner condominium. This motion does set forth the city's land use authority under Wisconsin state statutes. The plat request for 951 and 953 Gladstone Way. City staff review, city attorney review of the documents, plan commission review. This motion recommends to city council approval of the requested condominium plat. Are there any comments or questions concerning this motion?
So I was just kind of curious, because I was looking through all the declaration and all the stuff that creates the association for each of these. I'm assuming this is just being created by the owners before they sell them.
Yeah, they're currently, both units are currently owned by a single individual.
Right.
And they are just side-by-side residences on a parcel. This will cut them off into individual parcels. The condo itself is the interior of each unit.
Yep.
They'll be designated a specific parcel identification number. They'll maintain the distinct addresses that they have. But the big thing is that they can then be owner-occupied and transferred. It's just a different holding mechanism, a different ownership mechanism.
So I guess where I was going with this then, to follow up with that, is when these do become owner-occupied, the covenants and all the things that they have inside of their condo association, the owners can actually move through, change them, strike them out, do whatever they want to with them. This is just to set it up.
Yes, once the bylaws, the rules and regulations can be amended by future owners, by the board that consists of future owners. But all of those mechanisms have to take place. There is formality to it. What is clear, though, is that the new form of ownership will be that of condominium. There will be common elements. That's why a board is created. That's why articles are created. That's why bylaws and rules are created, to manage the property that is common to both units. So the form of ownership will maintain through time. It will be a condominium through time unless there's some action to change that again in the future. But that board could change, will change as owners come and go, and you could expect that with those changes, changes to the owner's rules and regulations and the bylaws would be contemplated.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
All right, Ms. Curler.
Just to follow up to that, Attorney Drescher, so I think we had a couple of these a year or so ago, if I remember right.
Yeah,
Similar
in this
situation.
area, there's definitely a trend, a
That
number of
neighborhood, yeah.
side-by-sides that were built as multifamily, essentially duplexes. And there's an opportunity right now to basically capitalize on a different form of ownership, to sell those individual units off and to maybe liquidate and walk away from that ownership. But yeah, please continue.
So just to follow up on Mr. Foster's question, so really the city's authority here and approval is sort of over the form of ownership and the way the parcels are identified, and not over those specific declarations and documents. That's not really our authority to review those.
It's certainly
I think
not
that's what
yours.
you're-
I have review authority as the attorney for the city. I may make suggestions to them. One consideration that's often in such closely held condos where there's two owners, right? These are two distinct units, but you're only dealing with a board of two people. What happens when there's a stalemate? A quorum is present under these articles and rules and bylaws when 51% of the owners, or when 51% of the board is present. Well, it's either both or none, really, in this circumstance, because one does not constitute a quorum. So when you have closely held or small condominiums like this, there are some logistical issues. But as I've reviewed the documents that have been submitted, as to form, they're fine. You do have some kind of those logistical considerations moving forward, but they're meeting the statutory obligations with regard to creation of this holding entity.
And those issues that you identified, those really don't impact the city.
No, ma'am.
So, okay.
And that is a portion of my review. There are aspects of such development that could affect the city. Oftentimes you have common utility issues. In this circumstance, we believe we have that resolved. There could be other common elements that may, interfere with city operations or something like that. In this circumstance, we're really just not looking at this. These are two, both, when you look at this item and the next item, they're two distinct developments that have been built and existing for a number of years, that were built to prior code, that are now taking advantage of a change in ownership mechanism to, deal with them differently, is really what it comes down to.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any further discussion on motion 2395? Did anyone wish to make a motion on 2395?
I'll move approval of motion 23-9-5, which is a condominium plat approval for the properties at 951 and 953 Gladstone Way.
I will second that.
All right. It's been moved by Ms. Curler and seconded by Mr. Foster to pass motion 2395. Is there any further discussion? All right. Hearing none, then we'll proceed with a roll call vote.
Ms. Lazaris,
Aye.
Mr. Foster,
Aye.
Mr. Grady,
Aye.
Ms. Curler,
Aye.
Mr. Holman.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Aye, thank you. All right, we go on to item number 13, which is like the twin reflection of this, and this is discussion and recommendation on Twin Maple Condominium Plat Approval, 941 and 943 Gladstone Way. Before us, we have a similar motion as before for motion 2396 Condominium Plat Approval, Twin Lake Condominium. And Mr. Evenson, do you have anything you want to say about this one?
Yeah, this one's one driveway to the west. Out of curiosity, I pulled the files the other day. They were built about a year apart. There's other than one's on a corner and one's not, they're very similar setup. And again, staff recommends approval.
All right, thank you. All right. Plan Commissioners, are there any comments you have about this motion 2396?
So I was just curious, could they have put all of these four in one condominium plat?
That would have actually been more difficult, because right now, each duplex is on a distinct parcel. So the first step to that process would be consolidating those two lots, which I don't know if you could technically do in this circumstance because of what each lot currently has. It'd be two principal structures. I don't know a situation where you can have two principal structures on one lot that is deemed residential like this. You could have a principal structure and an ancillary use like a boathouse or something like that. So first consolidating those, I think you have an issue there. And then you have to do another plat to condo all of them off. So it would have just been more difficult, and there probably is a mechanism to getting there. And, you know, that would maybe dissuade some of the previous concerns that I brought up about only having two members of a board, for instance. But logistically, that would be quite difficult. This is certainly a simpler process forward.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Is there further discussion on motion 2396? Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve motion 2396.
Second.
All right. It's been moved by Mr. Foster and seconded by Ms. Curler to pass motion 2396. Is there further discussion? All right. In that case, we'll proceed with a roll call vote.
Mr. Foster,
Aye.
Mr. Grady,
Aye.
Ms. Curler,
Aye.
Mr. Holman,
Aye.
Ms. Lazaris.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right. All right, thank you. And for item number 14, discussion, recommendation, discussion, decision, comprehensive plan update. All right. Plan commissioners, we do have before us resolution 23-3, recommendation to adopt the City of Lake Mills Comprehensive Plan Update 2040. And with this item, we did see information on the City Council items that they would like to see for revisions to the comprehensive plan. Mr. Daly, did you want to present that?
Sure. There's a brief memo included in your packet. Items 1 through 6 detail the request from the City Council. Item number 4, it looks like the red line didn't carry through. The change to that sentence would be the insertion of preservation of Rock Lake into that section. So these are the 6 changes that the City Council would like the Plan Commission to consider before sending a recommendation back to them. I would just remind the Plan Commission that you can make and review changes to any section of the document at this time. It's fully within your purview, but these 6 are the specific items that the City Council had have forwarded back to you for consideration. I attempted to make them as clear as possible in my memo, but if there's any questions that you have, I will do my best to answer them.
All right, well, very good, thank you. All right, well, you do see the memo from Mr. Daly and the 6 items here. Well, I think, if no one minds, I'd just start on number 1. This is on page 910, second row, second column. The City Council recommended alternating the section regarding the North Side Neighborhood Development Plan and changing the following language. Right now it reads implementing the recommendations of the North Side Neighborhood Development Plan to review the recommendations of the North Side Neighborhood Development Plan. Are there comments about this request to change? We can always come back to anything. All right, item number 2 on page 4-6. The Plan Commission clarified the transportation plan does not recommend consultation with subordinate boards. The council thought the section was unclear and should be better separated to ensure it is not being represented as part of the sidewalk plan, or should recommend that future sidewalk plans consider such factors. For this one, I looked at page 4.6, where here, the way this reads now is another component of the City of Lake Mills Transportation Plan 2025 is the sidewalk plan adopted in August 2004 and updated in January 2005. This plan calls for the repair of existing sidewalks and retrofitting of new sidewalks in older parts of the community where sidewalks were never installed. Consistency with the character of the neighborhood and in consultation with the subordinate board's recommendations are important considerations in the siting and installation of retrofitting sidewalks. The city's subdivision regulation requires sidewalks in all public rights-of-way, serving new residential and commercial developments, and has provisions ensuring pedestrian access to industrially zoned areas as well. Well, plan commissioners, when I read this, I think that the last sentence, well, that's just the case. The city's subdivision ordinance does have this requirement, and so on and so forth. And so, in my view, we are not considering the last sentence. When I read this and trying to, and Ms. Curley, and you're here, and you can get closer to what the council was after. But what I thought we might consider is in the second sentence on page 4.6 to say that right now it reads consistency with the character of the neighborhood and in consultation with the subordinate board's recommendations are important considerations in the siting and installation of retrofitting sidewalks. And I thought perhaps what we could do is say consistency with the character of the neighborhood is important in the siting and installation of retrofitting sidewalks. And perhaps that would be sufficient to comment that way. And I don't know if the council didn't want it stated that the sidewalk plan is a component of the transportation plan, or if I didn't understand it.
I think they just want to be clear that that second sentence that you read, that considering consistency with neighborhood and whatnot, that sentence is not currently in the sidewalk plan. So just specifying that whether that should be included in a future sidewalk plan or just clarifying that it's somehow separated from the sidewalk plan. But that sentence, since it follows the sentence right before it, they believe, I believe they thought that it was reading that it was in the sidewalk plan, whereas that it's not currently.
Oh, right, currently, no. So, that could be, that statement could be,
Future sidewalk plan, a future amendment to the sidewalk plan should include consideration of, consistency with the neighborhood, so maybe add in that clarifier to the beginning.
I would clarify, you could clarify that way, since currently it does not say that. But, you could say, amend the sidewalk plan to, so that consistency with the character of the neighborhood is important in the siting and installation of retrofitting sidewalks. You could, something like of that sort, to, Ms. Curler.
I think Mr. Daly's suggestion is a good one, and just going back to Mr. Foster commented to me a moment ago that he didn't think this was a very long list, but I think you weren't at our last meeting where we had a list of 12 that we already addressed, and then now here's some additional issues from the council to look at. So the previous version of this paragraph, as I recall, read seemed to suggest that this sentence about consistency, that was in the current sidewalk plan, that those were factors in the current sidewalk plan, which they're not. And so the Plan Commission at our last meeting kind of separated this out into two sentences, and there were council member concerns that maybe still didn't clear it up quite enough. So I do like Mr. Daly's idea, perhaps that sentence that starts with the word consistency could just say, in future updates to the sidewalk plan, consistency with the character of the neighborhood, et cetera, would be important considerations.
Oh,
Something like that.
I would say, no, that's a good way to put it.
So just kind of add a
Yeah,
clarifying phrase at
just
the
what she
beginning of that
said.
sentence,
Yeah, exactly what she said. I think that would,
which was almost exactly what you said. I think it was just adding a phrase at the beginning in future updates to the sidewalk plan.
Yes.
Does that, fellow commissioners, feel like that, comfortable with that?
I'm still trying to understand what
My feeling.
that means.
well, it was
But
just that, it was just that.
does that mean that-
Nothing commented on as to neighborhood character in the existing sidewalk plan, and they say,
Right,
well,
I get that,
future updates, and that's a consideration.
but what are we considering? What is the consideration? Does it mean that, well, there's never been a sidewalk there and it's gonna hurt our environment? We aren't gonna put sidewalks there because we've never had them before? Is that what it means? Or
don't-
what does the consideration mean? What are we considering?
I
Yeah,
don't
I think
think so. You might have.
It is a
situ-
subjective,
Right.
it will be a subjective analysis by whomever is on the city council at that time. If that criteria was present in the sidewalk plan, the only entity that's going to be able to determine whether it is consistent with the character of the neighborhood will be the city council
Yeah.
that's currently seated.
But that puts us in a weird place, especially if we're gonna charge back and get money back for putting in sidewalks from the citizens. If we're gonna tell them, we're gonna put this sidewalk in here for this council because we think it fits within your, within that part of your neighborhood, and then you go to the next one and say, well, we're not gonna do that because we don't think it fits with your neighborhood, and that's the next council saying that brings up a lot of
Equal treatment,
uniformity.
a lot of issues when you have ambiguous statements like that. Yeah, you know what I'm saying, Dan. It needs to be one way or the other, and the way the plan currently states is it says, if we're putting a sidewalk in there, we're putting a sidewalk in there because that's what we're doing for the rest of the community. And the way we do this is we charge you, the homeowner, that we're putting this in there. It may be harsh, but there's no gray area there. There's no weird gray area. And then one homeowner is all upset because they got forced to buy a sidewalk that they didn't want because they didn't think it fit in with their neighborhood. And then the next person is scot-free and doesn't have to. So I'm concerned with that language a little bit.
I wonder, Mr. Foster, based on what you just said, which I agree with, perhaps striking that third sentence would be even a better course of action than trying to further clarify it or give some direction for future sidewalk planning that may or may not be, what is the result of a future sidewalk plan. Maybe just striking that sentence that if it's talking about things that should be considered in the future, those can be considered.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that, yeah, we make statements. We don't make things that lead to assumptions, and that's what I'd like to see this.
And this actually is in the section of the transportation chapter that is titled Review of City, State, and Regional Transportation Plans. So it's really just supposed to be kind of a summary of what we already have rather than some statement about what could be done in the future.
Yeah. That's just my take on it.
Well, that's a good point.
Strike it.
Mr. Holman, you
Yeah.
would suggest to strike it as well?
Yeah, great idea.
So the sentence that starts consistency with the character of the neighborhood?
Are we concurring on that?
Concurred.
I concur.
Okay.
Fine. That's concurred, everyone, so that can be made.
So that's the resolution for item number 2 then? Okay.
Yeah, for item number 2. All right. Now, in item number 3, it says, on page 410, the city council would like to strike the sentence which reads, "The city should provide on-road bicycle facilities along Oak Street across Lake Street." As for me, I have no
Simple.
problem
Strike
with
it.
that, and it could be, that sentence could be stricken, and I would not object to such things.
Strike it.
I,
Yeah.
it sounds
I
like they
concur.
concurred, strike it.
Yeah.
Mr. Foster?
Okay. Item number 4, on page 911, the council would like the box in the second column, 5th row, as work with the Wisconsin DNR on issues affecting the state fish hatchery, dam management, preservation of Rock Lake, and implementation of the Ashland State Park Master Plan.
And so this was where, as Mr. Daly said earlier, the council wanted to add the phrase preservation of Rock Lake, because that wasn't
yeah.
mentioned there.
Well, that sounds good. I don't object to that. Sounds fine, everyone? Okay, well, they're happy about number 4. We are agreeing on that. All right. And number 5, on page 512, the city council would like the recommendation regarding the creation of a stormwater utility to include information regarding the referendum process and costs related to the creation of the utility. Alternatively, the city council would like to see this section removed. Well, as for me, I would agree with the alternative plan. It doesn't mean it can't come up, but I see no reason to refer it in this manner here, and so on and so forth, and regarding the referendum and so on, and the cost, and, all right, nobody knows. All right, so
I can't believe we didn't catch that when it was first time going over. Cheapers creepers.
So you're saying just strike
it,
just
yeah.
strike that whole bullet point?
I think we're concurring, it could be, that section could be stricken.
What should that
Yeah,
cost?
I would just say that whether included or not, the city council can pursue the creation of a stormwater utility.
Yeah, yeah.
So it does not, including it or not including it does
Doesn't
not
matter,
affect
yeah.
whether the city does it. The details that the city council was interested in, the referendum process, what steps it takes to go to referendum, and then the costs associated with it. I believe what they would want understood in it is, it's called an ERU, earned runoff unit. That's how a stormwater utility calculates how much you pay. A single-family home is typically 1 ERU. Stormwater utility applies to all property in the city, so it's different than a tax in that non-taxable property, churches and schools are subject to a calculation of what their impervious surface is and how that then translates to how many earned runoff units they have to pay for, essentially. So the stormwater utility essentially is calculating how much you are contributing to the stormwater utility by how much runoff you're causing off of your property into the system. So that, including, I think, information about that would be what the city council was looking for. Alternatively, simply removing it was their other option. So those are, I think, Ms. Curler, if that's correct, are the 2 options that the city council was dealing with. They thought there wasn't enough information to include a recommendation that a stormwater utility be included. So if that recommendation was going to be in it, to include more detail, or remove it from the document.
And I would just add, I agree with everything Mr. Daly said, and I would just add one other point. There was definitely sensitivity on the council's part at the cost, the potential cost of setting up a utility on the taxpayers and wanting that to be somehow recognized in here, but I'm not really sure that's the purpose of the plan, to identify things that would cost taxpayer dollars, so maybe striking it makes more sense.
Yeah. Sounds, staff, it sounds like we agreed on number 5, that striking it would be fine. Okay. Item number 6.
Oh, before you go on, I didn't have a chance to look, but is there a mention of the stormwater management utility in Chapter 9 under the implementation?
Oh.
There is, I don't know if we should strike that as well, or?
What if the Plan Commission would like, what I can take as your direction is to parse through the document to find mention of creation of a stormwater utility and remove it from any section in which it does appear. I believe it does appear in another section somewhere. I can't recall exactly where, or if it's informational only, or if it's under a recommendation section.
It'd be
remember
easy,
that
it'd be
one.
easy, it'd be
Oh, in
easy
the
for,
box
it'd be
there.
easy to find it.
Yeah, so
Oh.
it is in a box on page 9-9. So we would remove that, that 9-9, that first row there would come out.
Sure, yeah, sounds like it'd be simple to take out any references to it.
And it, specifically mentions the time frame of 2024, so it suggests that it would be something that's done soon, but if we're taking it out, that's good to strike that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. For item number 6, it says on page 9, the 5th column, 2nd row, the city council would like it to read as follows: coordinate with the Lake Mills Area School District and other civic organizations to bring new civic facilities to the city. For example, associate infrastructure for public schools, a community center, and other parks and recreation facilities.
This item was simply to have more of a bright line or further delineation between the city government and the school district. So the city council was concerned with the document stating that it had a role in the creation of new public schools.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly there's an obligation to provide infrastructure to those if the school district did pursue them, but they didn't want there to be a crossing of those roles, that the city has a role in whether a new public school is built. Is that a fair representation, Ms. Curler?
Yes.
I would agree with that.
All right.
And I would suggest on that one then that we also include the Public Works Board as a champion, since we're kind of adding a focus on infrastructure, there might be utilities and so forth. There would probably be a role for the Public Works Board there.
Yeah, I don't know if we want to go that far as to add it. And the reason I say that is because then we'd have to start adding all the other ones, because obviously if it's a park, then we'd have to.
Oh,
say
of course, yeah.
park.
Mhm.
I would just leave it as is, and as the stuff comes up, the council can create those groups
Address it.
and address it.
Okay.
That would be my recommendation.
I'm fine
Yes,
with that.
yeah.
So
All
people are
right.
okay with the language change, though, that the
Oh, sure.
council
yeah.
suggested? Okay.
All right.
So I think the only one we didn't make a decision on was number 1.
Ah. And so on and so forth. That sound like the suggested language was, that we were fine with that? Is that the case, that we are fine with the recommended language?
You know, I look at this, oh, sorry, go ahead, Mr.
No,
Foster.
I was just kind of curious, what was the reasoning behind going from implementing to review?
Softening the language, implementing, I think, felt had a direction and inevitability.
Got it.
Or that it would occur, that there was some immediacy to it. Whereas the review was to review the recommendations of that plan, but considering other factors that may be at play as to whether it's the right time to pursue implementation of that plan at that time. So a softening of the language.
Perfect. That makes sense to me.
Okay.
I notice 2 lines down from that, there's another item that uses the phrase periodically update and implement. And that would be another take on it. I mean, I think one concern is that that plan's been around for a while, and, you know, if an opportunity arose, is that still a fresh plan, or do we need to update it?
Yeah.
But I'm fine with,
You could almost change that wording to review and take out
Exactly.
both those words if you really had
All
the
right.
desire. So I'm good with
Change
changing
to
it to
review.
review. Is everybody
All right.
else? Any-
I think we covered the items that were listed. We got this distilled, and that is fine. Okay. So, Plan Commissions, we still have before us this Resolution 23-3, recommendation to adopt the City of Lake Mills Comprehensive Plan Update 2040.
So my recommendation would be for whomever makes the motion to make a motion to approve Resolution 23-3 with the changes to the Comprehensive Plan 2040 as discussed.
Sure, yeah, that sounds good.
Yep. So I will make that motion to approve Resolution 23-3 with the, with the changes discussed as recommended by council for the Comprehensive Plan 2040.
All right.
Second that.
All right, it's been moved by Mr. Foster and seconded by Mr. Grady to pass Resolution 23-3 to include the changes as we discussed this evening. All right, is there any further discussion?
I would like to add a comment. I don't know if anyone had a chance to attend or listen to the council discussion on this last week, but there was, and I think many of you also received a lot of correspondence on bicycles. And so there was a lively discussion about the bicycle map and, you know, whether the plan would be implemented verbatim. And so I think, you know, a couple of the items, or particularly item 3 that we talked about tonight, goes a long way to addressing that. There was a suggestion to put the bicycle map back into the plan, and that was not supported by a majority of the council. I think what I really like about, what I've noticed is that the Plan Commission received a lot of input on particular aspects of the current bicycle plan. And then as this moved its way through the process, the Plan Commission and the council got a lot of comments from kind of the other side of the table, which to me, I think is great, because that means we're hearing from lots of people. It also means that the bicycle plan in particular and the sidewalk plan as well are probably ripe for update. So I think it's really good that this comprehensive plan identifies the need to update the transportation plan, you know, sooner rather than later. And that will hopefully help people feel confident that they'll have a place to continue to bring their perspectives and then have that reflected in the city's plan. So I want to thank this commission. You did all this work before I was on the commission for really trying to balance all of those interests and be responsive to the people that came forward.
All right, thank you. We do have a motion and a second for the discussion on this resolution. All right, I'm hearing none, then we'll proceed with a roll call vote.
Mr. Grady,
Aye.
Ms. Curler,
Aye.
Mr. Homan,
Aye.
Ms. Lazares,
Aye.
Mr. Foster.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Aye, thank you. All right, next is item number 15, recommendations for future agendas. Is there anything we should know about for October? It does not sound.
Not that I have for you right now.
All right, well, that's fine. All right, in that case, we go to item number 16, adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Has been moved by Mr. Foster and seconded by Mr. Holman to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those against, fine, we are adjourned.